क्या एक इंसान के मर जाने के बाद सब कुछ ख़त्म हो जाता है, या फिर ये एक नई ज़िंदगी की शुरुआत है? हम इस वीडियो में इसी हकीकत को जानने की कोशिश करेंगे। क्या साइंस प्रूव कर सकती है कि आफ्टर लाइफ एग्जिस्ट करती है? आज के टाइम में हमारे पास जो नॉलेज और टेक्नोलॉजी वो इतनी वाइज नहीं है कि जिसकी हेल्प से प्रूव करा जा सके कि आफ्टर लाइफ एग्जिस्ट करती है। इसीलिए हम इस टॉपिक को समझने के लिए दो रास्तों की हेल्प लेंगे। सबसे पहला जो रास्ता है वो है एक्सपीरियंसेस, लोग एक्सपीरियंसेस, ठीक है। आगे मैं आपके साथ एक इंटरव्यू क्लिप शेयर करने वाला हूँ जो आपका कसम से दिमाग हिला के रख देने वाली है, ठीक है। ये इंटरव्यू क्लिप है डॉक्टर रूडी की, जो अमेरिका के रिनाउंड हार्ट सर्जन थे और जो फर्स्ट हार्ट ट्रांसप्लांट टीम थी स्टैनफोर्ड की, उसके मेंबर भी थे। तो जब ये क्लिप देखो तो थोड़ा दिमाग अपना खुला रखना। सो लेट्स वॉच दिस क्लिप।
It had been at least 20 minutes. I don't know this exact time sequence, but it was close to 20, 25 minutes.
Right.
That this man recorded no heartbeat, no blood pressure, and the echo showing no movement of the heart, just
Right.
sitting there. And all of a sudden we looked up, and the surgical assistant had just finished closing him, and we saw some electrical activity. And pretty soon the electrical activity turned into a heartbeat. Very slow, 30, 40 a minute. And we thought, well, that's kind of an agonal thing. And we see that occasionally, that the heart will continue to beat even though the patient can't generate a blood pressure or pump any blood. Well, pretty soon we look and he's actually generating a pressure. No, we're not doing anything. I mean, the machines are all shut off, and we're stopped all the medicines and all that.
Right.
And so I start yelling, "Get anesthesia back in here!" and get the nurses. And to make a very long story short, without putting him back on cardiopulmonary bypass, the heart and lung machine and stuff, we started giving him some medicines, and anesthesia started giving him oxygen, and pretty soon he had a blood pressure of 80, and pretty soon a blood pressure of 100, and his heart rate was now up to 100 a minute, you know. He recovered and had no neurologic deficit. And for the next 10 days, 2 weeks, all of us went in and were talking to him about what he experienced, if anything. And he talked about the bright light at the end of the tunnel, as I recall, and so on. But the thing that astounded me was that he described that operating room floating around and saying, "I saw you and Dr. Catania standing in the doorway with your arms folded talking. I didn't know where the anesthesiologist was, but he came running back in. And I saw all of these post-its sitting on this TV screen. And what those were any call I got, the nurse would write down who called and the phone number and stick it on the monitor, and then the next post-it would stick to that post-it, and then I'd have a string of post-its of phone calls I had to make." He described that. I mean, there's no way he could have described that before the operation because they didn't have any calls.
No.
Right?
And he's sitting on,
And
he's
he's-
lying on the, so he must have been floating.
He was up there.
Yeah.
He described the scene, things that there is no way he knew. I mean, he didn't wake up in the operating room and see all this
No.
stuff. I mean, he was out.
Right.
And was out for, I don't know, even a day or two
Right.
while
right.
we recovered him in the intensive care.
How do you explain that? What is your take on that, Dr. Rudy?
Oh. There's something out there that, you know, people with faith believe is there. Some people call it God, some people call it other things, Buddha or Muhammad or whoever. It has convinced me there is something out there.
Something out there.
अब जो मैं आपको सेकंड इंटरव्यू क्लिप बताने वाला वो एक बंदी की है जो मर करके फिर ज़िंदगी में लौटी है.
And then there's Jenny Summers, a graphic artist with IBM in Tucson, Arizona. As a young woman, Jenny went to summer camp with a number of her friends. To play a joke on the camp counselors, Jenny ran into a building that was under construction and fell 15 feet down a hole designed for a staircase. It took rescuers almost an hour to reach her comatose body. By the time they did, she was in the midst of a deep, near-death experience.
And evidently, I guess I had died because they were talking as if I couldn't hear them. And I started to float up out of my body, and I was encased in this love. It was just wonderful. And I said, does everyone get to experience this? It's just marvelous. And the answer was yes. And I said, even Hitler? And yes. And I knew it had to be true because of that love is so inclusive. It's so beyond anything in this world. The next thing I know, I'm in front of 3 moving kind of blobby shapes. And one of them is my great-grandma Julia. And she's telling me I need to go back. And they're saying, you have to go back. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to go back. I took back some of my future events that my family was going to go through. And so when I wake up from the coma, I see my mom. I say, Mom, you're going to die in 2 years. Not knowing I was in a coma, not knowing they said I had a 50-50 chance of survival now. And so I didn't know the hell that she had been through. Well, she told me that every time I would wake up from, recovery and tell the story again, I was forgetting more and more. So now we're out of the hospital, we're back home, and she has a Raymond Moody book in her hand. And she said, tell me again about me dying in 2 years. And I said, what? And she's like, and I could see she was serious. I said, wait, why are you asking me that? And she said, you told me that in the hospital I was going to die in 2 years. I said, no, I didn't. And I couldn't believe she was telling me. She closed the Raymond Moody book. She said she never wanted to talk about it again. Go fast forward 2 years later, my mom dies. She's in a car wreck with my sister. My sister's the driver, but they got hit head on. And Teresa survives, but my mom doesn't.
अगर आपको पूरे इंटरव्यू देखने की इच्छा है तो मैं दोनों इंटरव्यू की लिंक डिस्क्रिप्शन में डाल दूँगा, ठीक है? वहाँ पर क्लिक करना और जाना और पूरी वीडियो देखना, ठीक है? अभी तक जो हमने रास्ता अप्लाई करा था इस टॉपिक को समझने के लिए, वो लोगों के पर्सनल एक्सपीरियंसेस क्या थे, उसी से हम इस टॉपिक को समझने की कोशिश कर रहे थे. अब जो सेकंड जो रास्ता है हमारे पास वो है लॉजिकल रीजनिंग यूज़ करना इस टॉपिक को समझने के लिए. जैसा कि हम सभी को पता है कि हिटलर ने लाखों जूइश को मारा था. उसमें छोटे छोटे बच्चे थे, प्रेग्नेंट वुमेंस थी, बुज़ुर्ग लोग थे, ठीक है? तो एक हाइपोथेटिकल सिचुएशन क्रिएट करते हैं जहाँ पर पुलिस ने हिटलर को पकड़ लिया है और उसको प्रेजेंट करा है इस वर्ल्ड की सबसे हाईएस्ट लेवल की जो कोर्ट है वहाँ पर फॉर ट्रायल्स, ठीक है? तो वो कोर्ट मैक्स टू मैक्स हिटलर को क्या पनिशमेंट दे सकती है? डेथ सेंटेंस, ठीक है भाई. हिटलर को लटका दिया और हिटलर मर गया. तो मेरा ये क्वेश्चन है, क्या ये पनिशमेंट जस्टिफाइबल है फॉर डेथ्स ऑफ लैक्स ऑफ जूइश पीपल्स? मेरे हिसाब से तो जस्टिफाइबल नहीं है. तो जस्टिफाइबल क्या है? लाखों जूइश को मारने के बदले हिटलर को भी लाखों बार मारो, वो कैसे पॉसिबल है? इस लाइफ में तो वो पॉसिबल है ही नहीं, क्योंकि हमारे पास एक लाइफ है, एक ही बार हम मर सकते हैं, उसके बाद ज़िंदा हो ही नहीं सकते। ठीक है, तो टू एक्सप्लेन और टू जस्टिफाई सच टाइप ऑफ क्वेश्चन देयर शुड बी द एग्जिस्टेंस ऑफ आफ्टर लाइफ। आफ्टर लाइफ में आप किसी को भी कितनी भी कुछ भी कितने टाइम तक भी पनिशमेंट दे सकते हो। हमें एक बात समझनी होगी कि साइंस इतनी एडवांस नहीं है कि वो हर एक फिनोमेना जो हमारे सराउंडिंग एनवायरनमेंट में हो रहे होते हैं उन्हें सबको एक्सप्लेन कर सके। तो आफ्टर लाइफ एग्जिस्ट करती है या नहीं, व्हाट इज़ माई पर्सनल ओपिनियन, अकॉर्डिंग टू मी इट डज एग्जिस्ट। और दोस्तों, एक छोटे से कोट के साथ अपन लोग इस वीडियो को एंड करते हैं। देयर इज़ सो मच मोर देन वी कैन सी, देयर इज़ सो मच मोर दैट वी कैन बी। और इसी के साथ गुड बाय।